Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Gez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Gez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take an action on without the hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. Now, we appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us, and we have a very special guest. And I'm super grateful to have her on our show all the way, a fellow Aussie as well, from Western Australia in Perth. Her name is Tracey. Now, Tracey's a phenomenal woman, and 10 out of 10, she's just inspirational. She's every reason not to be a success, living a lifetime of overcoming self-limiting beliefs from a survivor of sexual abuse, domestic violence, cancer survivor, homelessness, and addiction. Tracey is now an impactful podcast entrepreneur, coach, speaker, and author. Her passion has a growing community following her journey from victim to victory. Tracey Cook is a high-energy, I can vouch for that, unique and engaging speaker who tells stories to inspire and create transformation. She gives the audience the direction in transformation to find their purpose, step into their story using storytelling, strategy, and speaking. Guys, I'm really excited. I've been thinking about this podcast show, and I'm super grateful to have her. Tracey, welcome to the show.
I'm so humbled to be here. I'm so grateful. What you're doing in the podcast space is phenomenal, and you, my friend, are inspiring so many as well. So I really appreciate being a guest here. I've been so excited and looking forward to it.
I know, it's been amazing, guys. We've been going through the calendars, and we finally get connected, and I've just been thinking about it for the last couple of days, and you know how we can add value into the audience and the lives of others. And Tracey, can you please tell us who you are and what you do?
I am a mid-century wife, mum and nana, and I am a podcast creator and a brand storytelling strategist. Two of the most coolest job titles you'll ever come across.
I love it.
So what I do, I help people really find their own unique story, and I help them launch and brand into their own authenticity and uniqueness, which sets us apart from everybody, helps us connect on a different level, and builds relationships organically. And I'm very passionate about people stepping into their stories.
Wow. And, you know, you've got an amazing story. And by the way, guys, you got to check out her podcast, Victim to Victory. It is phenomenal. Again, it's 10 out of 10. I was also a guest, so I'll put that in the provided links. But before we go to entrepreneurship, and you're a podcaster yourself, and again, show is top notch, high caliber guest with so much impact and influence around that. And, you know, how did you get started in podcasting?
Well, that is such an interesting question, and thank you for asking me. At the end of 2019, I was in Florida on an entrepreneur reality show. And as we know, us Aussies down here, it's about a 30-hour plane trip, right?
Wow.
It's about so that's a long time to think about an experience like that is kind of once in a lifetime to go through. And it was with Ray and Jessica Higdon on their reality show, and the director was or is Hank Norman, who's the success behind Grant Cardone and Mel Robbins. And I didn't really know who these people were. I went into this reality show very blind, and I really found myself through that process. Now, as we know, reality shows, it's all about cameras up in your face, telling you ugly stories with snot bubbles and breaking you down and showing your vulnerabilities. And I didn't tell my story at that time, Gez. I didn't tell my story, but I made such a connection with all the other guests on the reality show that I immediately created a bond with them over knowing their stories of addiction and rape and it was just mental health and all these levels of stories, trafficking, like really big, impactful stories. And I never told mine on the show. I thought, nope, you're not getting me, ugly cry, on that camera of yours. And on that long plane ride home, there's a lot of time to think about your story and when you're going to tell your story. And I got home the very next day. I got up and I pressed play on my phone, and I just blur. And I told everybody, the world, and it was almost freeing of my childhood in abuse and domestic violence and addiction and homelessness and a cancer survivor. And I've hit every stick on the way down that tree there. And I was inundated with hundreds of messages. My messenger blew up. I was absolutely overwhelmed. And I thought, if they've taken the time to reach out to me, it took me weeks to reach back and apply and reconnect and reply to hundreds of messages. Now, a week after that, I was a guest on Jessica Higdon's Mumpreneur Monday, and she brought it up in conversation as well. And again, the messenger blew up. And I was completely overwhelmed by this. I wasn't expecting this much recognition, this much conversation, and this much from my story. I didn't feel like I was worthy of those messages of, you're empowering, you're inspirational, if you can do it, I can too. I've now left my husband because of your story, and I want to be a better version because of your story. And it was completely overwhelming, completely. And I thought, I've been given this for a reason. The universe has landed this in my entrepreneurial lap, and I've got to do something with that information. At that time, I was a radio announcer in Perth. And this was, beginning of 2020, when the world went crazy. And I said, I'm going to start a podcast and showcase, give a platform to all these people that have never ever told their story, and I'm going to give them a platform and the respect that it deserves to help other people as well, because I know my story helps. So my thinking was at that time, Jez, that if other people can tell their story, other people will connect with them, and this ripple effect to show hope and to be the change in the world, well, that's inevitable, right? And it basically blew up and skyrocketed from that moment. Now, hey, I look back on those early days of my podcast and I thought, what was I doing? Just imperfect action. That is like, I'm the poster child for imperfect action. It was very surreal.
So how did you overcome that with those thought patterns and, those limiting beliefs? Because a lot of people are currently facing that, and they have their own narratives, but you're able to change those narratives in your life, and you're able to get your own breakthrough. How did you go through that process and made that choice and decision to say, you know what, I'm moving forward, this is it? How did you come to that point?
That's a very interesting question, and each time I've kind of delved a little bit deeper into the response to that kind of question as well, because a lot of people ask it. It is a common thing we ask ourselves as survivors, as victims. Even though my childhood was more than most, and I have hit every branch on the tree, like I said, with childhood sexual abuse, with domestic violence, with addiction, homelessness, cancer survivor, you name it. Those self-limiting beliefs that you mentioned, they do creep in and they never really go away. But you create such an awareness that it's there. And that is all a result of personal development, because even though I was going through such trauma and such abuse to the lowest level, I still knew I was meant for more. And I know that sounds terrible. And there is a point, and I call them sliding door moments, that you think, I can take that route or I can take that route. I can either hold up the victim card and feel sorry for myself and drink myself stupid every day and blame everything on everyone else, or I can embrace the things that have happened to me, and this is very weird sounding to a lot of people, and own my story and make changes with it and treat it as a gift. Because I love saying, wear your story like a superhero cape and not an anchor. Because no matter what we've been through, Gez, it's given to us for a reason. And at the time, we don't realize it what it is. But when you work through step by step, and we have good days and bad days, and we really embrace and not put aside, and we really look in the mirror and face what's happened to us and acknowledge it and release what no longer serves us. Because if we're a victim of an experience, if we hold on to that and let that hold us back, and if we hold on to that and don't move forward to do good with the outcome of that, to be a better person and to help others, the person that has abused us or the experience that has disabled us, they win. And they don't get to win. We get to win because we choose to write our next chapter. We don't choose how our chapter begins sometimes, but we can make sure that we can choose how the rest of the chapters in our book are going to play out, because we are in control of our lives. Nobody is coming to save us. And that's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. We are 100% in ownership of our own thoughts, our own mind, and our own actions. And at some point, that sliding door moment comes into play, and there is a defining moment. And you don't realize it at the time. Mine was sitting on the plane coming back from that reality show. And that's when I decided I need to go bigger. I've been playing way too small. And now it's not about me. It's about me telling my story to create that relationship and connection, to help other people and to show other people, to give them a helping hand up and say, now it's your turn. You tell your story. You are great just how you are. And you embrace that. And you show other people where you were, how you overcome, and how you're helping others. And the ripple effect begins. It's a beautiful feeling.
I love it. Just those few moments have been pivotal, and those who are listening to this podcast show, take notes, because there is just so much truth in what Tracey has mentioned, and we got to embrace this gift. And yes, we got to turn those ashes into beauty, those broken pieces into a masterpiece, and it is something that we can be proud of, to say, yep. And I love how you mentioned about we need to acknowledge it and let go. And I know it's a hard to do that, and it's hard to chew on it at the same time, but the moment that you do that, there's so much freedom, and you get to own that story, because you just never know that the things that you go through in life can also impact somebody's life as well. That, yep, if Trace is able to do this, and that's her story, man, I can do it exactly the same. And Tracey, I can just sense, every word that comes through your mouth, and there's so much truth and resonance that I'm relating to, because, we are superheroes, right? And don't be the anchor for it. And I just love that analogy. And you're a very successful entrepreneur yourself, and you really specialize in branding. And how did your story combine with what you're doing in your passion in your business?
That's a great question. So with my brand storytelling, I knew about branding, which I actually thought was fonts and logos, right? It's not. Believe it. And I thought, brand storytelling, is this a new concept? No, it's been around for quite a while. So while I'm working in the background, giving a platform to people to tell their stories, that's their brand. Your brand is your story is your brand. This is how people are connecting on a more intimate, deeper level. We all know the stories of Richard Branson and Oprah and Tony Robbins, and we all know their stories, right? And we love, especially as Aussies, don't we, Jez? Barracking for that underdog, It's like, go you, you know? And and I think that a lot of people miss the concept, especially with entrepreneurship and business. And I think there's a lot more awareness around it now that you are your brand. And it's not about the products you sell. It's not about, the pen that you're selling. It's about you, and it's about your story. It is where you have been, how you've overcome, and how you're helping others. And the rest will come. The work will come, the clients will come, the money will come. And once you detach from that outcome and you just get addicted to the activity of serving others and leading from your heart and genuinely caring and connecting with people and building on those relationships. And Hank Norman actually said, document, don't create. Take people on that journey with you, the highs and the lows. We've had enough of the fake Instagram models sitting around the pool. We know that's not real. It's been taken into light in the last few years, especially, that real is the new currency. Real and connection is the way forward. People want to get to see us. And Brene Brown says, dare greatly to step into the arena. We're dropping our armor, and we're conditioned by society, Jez, that vulnerability is weak, and to show your business on the bad days. That's not a good business move. Well, I challenge that. I think it is a good business move because I think it's real. And I think it just creates a deeper level of connection. So your brand is your story, and your story is your brand.
I love it. And not many entrepreneurs or business owners will, they don't, I think they're quite fearful and afraid to be in that vulnerable state where, honesty is the best policy, where they don't want to have that solicited where, look, I'm open, quite closed and reserved. But I love it how you say, honesty is the currency, right? It's building that trust and that connection, right? People want to do business not because of your product, it's because of who you are. And you are your brand, and it's not just fonts and logos as people may think. Well, branding is your story, and I love that, like how you tailor that. And how do you make an effective branding story? So if you've got a story that you have, is there a certain flow or formula in how you can tailor your own personal story that can make an impact to the life of others?
100% there is. So first of all, we've got to be known for that one thing. So the strategy and the formula and the methodology that has been tested and tried and things like that is you want to be known for one thing. You want your name actually connected to that one thing. I get tagged in so many Jason Momoa posts, it's unbelievable, because people know I love Jason Momoa. That's when you know your brand is working, because people know your likes, they know your dislikes. So when we're telling our story, we want to be informative, we want to be entertaining, and we want to be educating. And they're all your branding, kind of your content marketing pillars almost. But I like to break it down even more simpler than that. You want to be known for that one thing. Where were you, and what was that one defining moment that messed you up? What was the one out of all the things? What was the one moment that you went, nah, that's it, I'm changing my life? And sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper into our story. It might even go back to when you're in kindergarten and you put up your hand thinking that you knew the answer to a question the teacher asked, and you were shut down, the class laughed at you, and you never put up your hand again. You went under the radar for years and years. That might be your defining moment. But when you actually really dig deep and do that personal development, and you're willing to own it, that's the hardest part, and to look into that mirror and say, I'm owning this, and I'm going to tell the world, and it's going to be really, really hard to do, but it's also going to be freeing, because you're just going to step into your own true authenticity. So what's that one moment as part of the strategy that really mucked you up, that you were at your lowest and you just didn't think there was any more hope, and then that one thought or that one event or that one person said something or something happened to you and you thought, I can be better, I can do better, I can change this situation? What is that one moment? And once you find that one moment, and that is the hardest thing to do, believe me, I've worked with so many people, that is the hardest thing. It might be this, it might be that, it might be this. Oh no, it's this. We have to dig. And once we know that, the next part of that is, that's where I was. This is how I overcome. This is what I went through to overcome. And this is what I'm doing now. So you're leading with your signature story, your connection story, your brand story. And you're saying, this is the moment that really screwed me up. And I done X, Y, and Z, and this is how I overcome it. And now I'm doing X, Y, Z. Because we like a hero at the end, right? Nobody likes just a success story. It's like, oh, look at me. I'm successful. I've done this. I've done that. Look what I'm banking, and I'm driving a Maserati, and I'm living in a mansion. Yeah, great. We want to know how you got there. Because I tell you what, if you go, I'm living in a mansion, I'm driving my Maserati, and I swim with my kids in my big pool every day, people are going to go, I know her story. Wow, I remember her saying when she was homeless and living in her car. Go you. So without the front part of your story, they're not going to celebrate the success part. And that's where your community and your audience and your brand, you got to create that connection, because there's no use just seeing the highlight reel. We want to know how you got there, because I tell you what, if they see me driving a Maserati and they know my story, they're going to be clapping. If they see me driving a Maserati and don't know my story, they're going to go, all right for some. So we have to really tell our story often as well. And what I also find with brand stories, with that methodology, is the more we say it, the more we refine it, and the more clarity we get around it, and the more connection we build. And every time we tell it, emotions will still come up. You never become disconnected. And on some of the virtual stages I've been on, I've told my story, and I may have told it 500 times now, and I'll still catch myself welling up or a lump in my throat, because it's my story. And each time I tell it, emotions do still come up. And when they stop coming up, that's when you know you need to dig a little bit deeper or go and find a bigger purpose, because your story needs to serve more people.
I love it. That's just a mic drop, Tracey. Like, guys, if you're listening to this right now for the very first time and you're listening to Tracey, you really gotta get in touch with her, get connected in terms of her podcast, and really get to know who Tracey is. And guys, there's just so much truth, insights, and value. I'm just speechless at the moment because I'm just absorbing to what you're saying, Tracey. I can really feel your authenticity. I can really feel that you're adding so much value, not just with branding, not just with the story, but who you are as a person. And it's radiating all over, and I can sense that. I wanted to ask, what was your key lesson learned during your entrepreneurship that you're now serving a passion? Is there one pivotal moment that you've learned that you're not going to do that again? It's like you earned it, and then now you've kind of like became very successful. It's because you've learned from the past and to the present and to the future. Can you share what your key learnings are that people can actually learn from your experience and your story?
I thought it was about me. Boy, was I wrong. I thought it was about me, and it was all about me. And for a while there, it was like, look at me, I'm brave. I told my story. Now you got to like me. And it's not. It's not about me. My story helps a lot of people, and I'm eternally grateful for that. That's why I tell it. But it's not about me. It's about my story and my experience that now breathes light and life and hope and change and inspiration into other people. I thought it was about me, and that was my biggest learning. Your ego is not your amigo. Once you realize and have full awareness what you're doing, because you don't know that you're doing it, and that's part of the personal growth journey, is to have all these awakenings and awarenesses around these pre-programmed habits or societal habits that you didn't know that you've had or got. And when you actually awaken yourself to, this is my ego talking and it's not about me, you can just serve it at a much higher level.
So how did you make that shift, and that you know that you had that awareness of that, ego is not your amigo, but how did you make that shift to say, it's all about me now? How do you make that shift to serving others? How did you do that?
I realized that one of the messages I got, where a young woman had said that she was leaving her domestic violence relationship because of my story, and she had an exit plan. And we were talking, total stranger, she's in the US, total stranger. And I didn't hear from her for weeks, and I was caught up being busy replying to all these other messages. And I always remember this woman's story. I won't mention her name. And I popped her a message and I said, hey, hun, how did everything work out for you? And it was a couple of days went past, and I thought, oh, that's unusual, because usually she was responsive really quickly with her messages. I thought, oh, okay. And I got a message, and it said, this is what name? I'm so-and-so's father. We have her phone with us. And I'm like, oh, is everything okay? Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. We had been reading through the messages, and her exit plan didn't quite work. There's that lump in the throat. That's what made me realize that was very powerful and insightful for me to realize that this isn't fun and games, which I already knew, but this is serious. This is people's lives. This is people's stories. It's people's businesses. It's people's brands. It's people's lives. And I completely took myself out of the picture as a result of that conversation and that message. And that was a full awakening and awareness moment that I was given and eternally grateful for, that words and connections can change and save lives. And it's a very powerful place to be. Sometimes overwhelming, and sometimes you want to reject it, but you can't, because you've got a responsibility to people that you serve. So you have to go through that growth to be able to be that better person, no matter how hard it is. So that is a very powerful lesson where I learnt to take myself out of situations.
Wow. Tracy, thank you so much for sharing it. Man, this needs to follow up with another session. And guys, I trust that you are getting so much nuggets. There's just so many golden nuggets just with this podcast show, and I know this is not going to be the last. Look, Tracy, I ask this question to every guest that's on the show. What is your meaning of motivation without the hype, and how do you use motivation for your personal success?
I think every day is a new day. You get to choose who you are every single day. And if you're not, you need to find a way to find gratitude in one thing every day, because so many don't get to.
Man, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. That was awesome. And we just went deep real quick. But you know what? I just love just exploring this. And I know we're going to have to do another follow-up session. But I know that there's going to be a lot of podcast listeners that's going to get so much golden nuggets out of this, because they're either going through things or they're experiencing things. And I love, trading that me for the we. It's, and that's your superpower. It's that zest, that secret sauce. And I love it. Like, if I could just scream like, I can, but I love it, So it's such a privilege to have you on, Tracy. Knowing that just the accolades and the things that you achieved in life, most importantly, the way that you serve others, and it's just radiating over you. And I want to say thank you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It's just such with gratitude that you're here to adding value to the lives of others, particularly in this community. So, guys, those who are watching and listening to this podcast show, please get connected with Tracy. All the links are provided in the show notes, so you can get in touch with her. And please, I urge you, and I also put a link that I also did an episode with her in Victim to Victory, but overall in her podcast show. And don't forget to subscribe and follow her and all that caboodle. She's amazing. So, guys, if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we would love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to show this podcast show on social media by inviting others. It would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together, together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspirational messages and episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.